Welcome to LinkedIn Live. I'm Jacqueline Stockwell, CEO and founder at Leadership Through Data. I inspire, motivate and educate information leaders across the world to focus on their messaging through storytelling and visual aids. Over the next 12 months, I want to deliver an information management accelerant program called Empower. Now, it's really nice to be back. We just had a massive technical glitch, which is our first one on LinkedIn Live. So we're going to be back and we're just going to restart it again. So I'm going to introduce you to Andrea McIntosh, who is the Global Manager for Operations at Leadership Through Data. Do you want to introduce yourself, Andrea?
Sure, Jackie. Thanks for the little exciting glitch there that kept us on our toes. But I'm Andrea McIntosh. I am General Manager here at Leadership Through Data, and really excited to be on this LinkedIn Live, my first one. So pretty exciting. So I've got 25 plus years experience in both information management and IT, and I'm also a trainer. So this subject is I've also been trained, so this subject is very close to my heart. So looking forward to it today, Jackie.
Amazing. So if you're joining us live, hopefully you've rejoined us after the technical issues we've got. I've got a copy of my book to give away for free. So all you have to do is just keep commenting as we go along through today's session. Now, last week we talked with Rachel Mitchell about the feeling so many information leaders carry. So the feeling of being left behind, being stretched, exposed, or like you should somehow have it all together. And the message from that session was really simple. You are not behind, you are probably just carrying too much, and you need to look at that time management effectiveness. Now, this week I want to take it one step further, because once people realise that they're not failing, the question is, often they think to themselves, so what do I actually need to do? And that's where I want to say something really clearly at the start. More training is not always the answer. Now, I say that as a CEO of a global information management training company, but it's really important to recognise that if you've found that overwhelmingness, you've found that additional time, is actually training is not the right thing, because we can spend so much time on LinkedIn Lives, through blogs, through webinars, just learning, but it's how we implement that. Now, I absolutely believe in learning, in professional development, in implementing your skills, and just, learning something new. It always makes me feel confident and cosy and, really excited and innovative when I've learned something new. But I also know from working with information leaders over the world that sometimes people are not stuck because they just don't know enough. It's just how they implement it. And sometimes they are stuck because they just have too much information. There's so many expectations and too many competing priorities. And not having that clarity or support to turn what they know into action. And this is a very different problem. Because if somebody is overwhelmed, handing them another training course, another recording, another workbook, another blog, another webinar, and another pile of content can actually make them feel worse, because it's just like, I've got so much. And it can create that horrible feeling of, I should know this by now, or I've done this training, so why am I still not moving forward? And it brings in that sort of additional layer of like anxiety or apprehensions about what you should be doing. So Andrea, I want to talk about this LinkedIn Live, and I kind of want to unpack that, kind of properly. And we're going to talk about the difference between information clarity and that supported action, which the supported action is just super exciting for me, because I think that's so important. We're not going to hand them a textbook and say, yeah, here it is, good luck, and on your way. It's that supported. So we're going to look into why professional development does not always lead to sort of real world change, and why we're going to explore what actually helps people move forward when they're trying to lead change in sort of those more complex environments. Now, this is not about dismissing training, it's about being honest that training on its own sometimes just isn't enough. Because knowing something and being able to implement something in a real organisation, with real people, with real politics, with real systems, with real risk, real time pressures, and real self-doubt, those are very different things. So if you're listening and in the comment, put in the comment box, I want you to think about that yourself, your team, or the people you support. Like, to start thinking about those things. Are you dealing with a knowledge gap? Are you dealing with, some sort of clarity gap? I don't know what to do, so how do I do this? Or are you dealing with a support gap? Do you need that additional support and that additional layer? Because when you can actually name the real gap, you can choose that better next step. So you can think, right, that's the thing I need to do. I need to look at coaching. I need to look at mentoring. I need to look at like an accelerant program that can give you that supported guidance to take that next step forward. And as always, this is not a webinar or kind of, I think LinkedIn Lives rather than webinars, but it's a real conversation that we're going to have. So please join into the comments, ask questions, and let me know what kind of you're thinking in the chat as well. And then you might be lucky enough to get a copy of my book. Right, Andrea, so let's get started. So why do so many smart, capable professionals still feel stuck after doing more training?
Yeah, so this is quite a powerful question, Jackie, and it's certainly something that I have felt in my years of being in the industry. I don't think that the problem isn't, the problem's not the lack of knowledge. It's around how we consistently apply it. So we go away, we attend webinars, we complete certifications, read books, do all the training that we can. But what we're not creating is that space to turn that information into action. So we come back, we've got competing priorities. The other thing is that lack of confidence to try something new. So, I've gone away, I've learnt something new, and then I get back to my business as usual. And then I'm lacking that confidence to be brave and actually give it a go. The other thing is the organisational culture. And I think this is where we need to have those conversations, around our leadership styles in the organisations. Is there's this real, we've just got to keep the lights on. And certainly in information management, there's a lot of pressure just to keep the lights on what we're doing. So, to think about this powerfully, knowledge is something that accumulates. We accumulate it over time. It's the progress that stalls it. So unless we're progressing and building on that knowledge, we're going to still feel stuck.
And I think it's kind of resonated with kind of what we talked about last week about that time management. So you can identify what you need to do with your time, but you can somewhat overwhelming. Like we were talking this morning about my calendar, weren't we? And like, I know what I want to do. I need to organise my calendar, but how do I move forward with my calendar? And where do you get that supported kind of guidance of that structure and the time allocation as well? So I think it's a very good point. So what's the difference between learning something and actually being able to move it forward in real life? Like, what do you do? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so learning something and moving it forward are two very different things. So learning something, what we're thinking about there is the do I understand this? So that's learning. But when we think about moving it forward, it's about capability. So can I actually do this consistently in my environment? So real capability combines a lot of ingredients. So we got the knowledge, so we understand the concept. We're building the skills, so we're going to be starting to be able to perform it. We're going to build that confidence, and that comes to believing in yourself. So, you're going to build confidence, Jackie, when you've learned about the calendar, but you then believe that you can do it. So that's that mindset thing that we always talk about, right? And then practice, repeating it until it becomes natural. Don't give up is the message there. So keep going, keep going. But feedback is really important as well. And, when we look at the accelerator program or we look at communities of practice, this is where that's really good, is knowing what's working. And then support. Support is the final ingredient. So having someone to lean into when you get stuck. So training, focuses on the do I understand this, but we actually need that transformational change that comes with those other ingredients.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's, from my time in the NHS, going on training courses and having that, really good knowledge, skill set, and then you kind of get back to the workplace and you just think, what do I do now? And I used to go to an information governance steering group, so once a month, and then it's still going now as well. But then you could then put something on the group and kind of get that that supported community. And I think that's what we have built in the Empower Accelerator program, because it actually gives you that training with the support and the guidance to kind of move it forward. And I think when you look at training, even if you've had the training, you've got the knowledge, you can still use that supported methodology to actually get stuff done and not have that overwhelm. And I just love the way we just talked about my calendar, because that was one of the real things today, because I was getting so stressed out about my calendar, and then I just wanted to talk to you about it. And then that's a really simple example of, well, I know what to do in my calendar. The execution's not that great, but I just kind of need that supported, trusted kind of guidance, and have that conversation with you about, well, okay, actually, what actually kind of works. So I think that's really good. So why, in that context, Andrea, why does more content sometimes make overwhelming worse than better?
Yeah, so this is like natural sort of psychology. I'm not a psychologist, but every time a new idea comes into our brains, it actually has a fight with the ones that are already in there. So it's going to be competing with the ideas that you've already got. So to kind of use an analogy here, so imagine you've got a toolbox and you're going out and you're getting increasingly sophisticated tools, but you never actually use them, and you never build anything using those tools. So eventually opening that toolbox is going to become very intimidating. So content without implementation creates that sort of decision fatigue. I'm a good one for this. So analysis by paralysis, and the feeling that you're always behind. So people don't need another 50-slide presentation. What they need is the clarity. So clarity, what to do next, what can I do this week, what tools can I actually put down in order to pick up that new shiny one before I stock my toolbox. So sometimes, Jackie, the most valuable learning experience isn't about adding another concept. It's about removing that complexity and what you're already facing.
Yeah, and that's kind of that safe and supported environment that you're describing, isn't it? It's kind of having that. I know a lot of people that I've worked with previously, they just want to learn and learn everything, which is great, because that kind of increases your knowledge. But actually, then how does that execute? How does that, build the organisation? Because I've always seen training as an investment. So it's like you're putting money into an investment pot, right? So you invest it straight away. You're not going to get a return like on the next day, are you? And training is the same thing, because it can take... Excuse me, I've forgotten my phone. It can take a longer period to actually get that investment, even when you've kind of trained. But you can train initially, upfront training 3-4 days, but you won't actually start until you start implementing it. It can take a longer period to get through. And I think if you're heavy loaded on the training and then you just don't do anything with it, that's when it can go and be like, well, you can get, as you said, the belief of, well, I know what to do, but I now don't know how to execute it, and I need kind of that safe and supported environment to actually do what I need to be doing. And I think it's some really good points. Just before we move on, you talked about, I really like your framework around the skills and wills matrix.
Yep.
And I think it would be really important for you just to share that before we go forward, because if you're identifying within your team that people need more training, actually they might need more support instead of training. And I think that would be a really useful way for you to just explain the skills and wills matrix, so people have an understanding of that as well.
Yeah, sure. So the skills and will matrix, it's about finding that balance between someone's will and someone's skill. You can't train will. That's, you can't send somebody on a course, I'm a willing person 101, but you can also always train them the skill. And the skills and wills matrix is where we get that, that nice view of where we have to apply training to the really willing people, and the people who are high skill but low will, give them the coaching, give them the encouragement, give them the support that they need to perform. So pretty much that's what the skill and will matrix is about, is not treating everybody the same, thinking about their skills, plugging the gaps where they're needed, where there's no will, building them up, giving them the support that's needed.
Brilliant. So what are organisations getting wrong when they assume knowledge is that main gap?
Yeah, so it's easy to diagnose the skill gap because training is a familiar solution, like, oh, somebody doesn't know this, let's send them on a training course. But if a team is struggling, the instinct is often to do that, to send them on a course or buy another online workshop. But in many cases, people already know what good looks like. The real barriers of the lack of, we talked about this before, the lack of time to apply the new approaches, that lack of clarity on priorities. So when you go back to business as usual, how can I fit this in with my priorities? The other thing that comes into the mix, Jackie, is, we go on, and I've done this on leadership courses. I've been sent on really expensive leadership courses that have given me a lot of new skills, but then I come back and I don't have the authority to make the decisions or deploy the changes. So that authority needs to be there to support the new learnings, and also that fear of getting it wrong. You're new to this, you've learnt this stuff, and now you want to do it, but there's that little fear inside of you that maybe I didn't learn enough and I might get it wrong. So when organizations and our teams around us, when we're responding just with more training, you can actually end up increasing knowledge without increasing capability. So we just need to make sure that the two sit side by side. So one of the useful questions is, if everyone knew exactly what to do tomorrow, what would stop them doing it? And that's a really powerful question that we need to be thinking about.
Yeah, brilliant. Do you want to pop that in the chat? Andrea's comments. So what are the things they need to be thinking about? That would be amazing.
Sure.
So why do people actually need? So what do people actually need when they're trying to lead change in complex environments?
Yeah, so there's a lot of needs when it comes to change, but I think the key thing is that leading change isn't simply knowing about a methodology. It's about navigating that uncertainty, and the key thing is bringing people along with you for the ride. So that often means that people need that clarity. So understanding what matters the most and what success looks like, and also what's in it for me. Practical tools, so templates, playbooks, frameworks that can be used immediately. Safe practice. So I heard you say the word safe before, Jackie, and to be kind and to care for the people in the mix, we need to make sure that there's a safe practice. So opportunities for people to test ideas without major consequence. And that's certainly something that I encourage, and when I'm delivering training, is this is safe. You can't break this environment. Give things a go. Feedback. Getting that feedback, challenging assumptions, giving the people the space to refine their approach, and then that permission. So, leaders who support experimentation, they're going to get better outcomes from training as well. They're going to get better outcomes from their people. But all in all, it's about having that community wrapped around it. So the peers, people who have faced similar challenges and can actually share those stories. So I know, Jackie, you're a fan of storytelling. So having a community where you can openly tell those stories, those things are going to help turn knowledge into action. So, that's the key, getting the most out of training, turning that knowledge into action. There's not a single right answer for anything we do in our world. So, we can't just cookie cut it.
If only we could. So what do people actually need when they're trying to build an environment? Let me just start that again. Why is environment such a big factor in whether progress actually happens?
Yeah, I mean, we know this with even down to pets, right? So environments for our pets when they're growing and they're learning to be better pets, it's the environment, it's the things that we do to encourage our pets. We can, I'm not saying we're all pets, but it's a good analogy that our environment plays a big part. So even the most highly capable people are influenced by the systems around them. So if the organisation, say for example, rewards short-term firefighting, people naturally will spend less time on strategic improvement. So if every hour is already committed, learning gets postponed. So this is where we need to build our environments that it's a natural growth environment. It's like good mindset. Environment shapes behavior by making some actions easier than others. So improving performance is less about changing people and more about removing that friction that prevents them applying what they already know, which we've talked about earlier in the piece on some of the other questions. So removing that friction about their capability to do it.
So it's just culture, then pretty much. It's the environment builds the culture, organisational culture. So you could have a good line manager that builds an excellent culture for you to get stuff done, like I say. But you could have kind of a resistant one as well. So it's building the culture. And when you talk about pets, that reminds me of my pony that I purchased in the February, and how much work we've done, and how much love and support and nurture we've given him. And we're getting those outcomes now with sort of good riding, taking into events as well. And I think it's that same methodology though, but I have a yard full of people that support us, and it's the whole combination of. It's not just training, it's that supported methodology to kind of implement as well, and the culture that you're in. So I think you've got some really good points there. What tends to happen when somebody's trying to implement everything alone?
So that's another really powerful question. I would say they will feel really, really alone and probably very vulnerable as well. So working in isolation, it creates a very predictable cycle. So someone leaves a course full of ideas and enthusiasm, they return to their overflowing inboxes, competing priorities, business as usual, and without that opportunity to regularly reflect or get the feedback, they have to make every decision themselves. So, they'll start second guessing whether they're on the right track. They'll delay decisions. I'm a good one for that. So delay decisions while searching for the perfect answer. The other thing that happens is that momentum gets lost. So they, start with a bang. I've got this new thing, I've gone away and I've learned project management. Here's all these new things that I'm going to do. But then the momentum gets lost because they're not getting that feedback and the other work starts taking priority. There's that isolation, and that isolation is the worst thing. So the more they encounter resistance, and I know this from personal experience as well, new ideas, everybody else around me is resisting it. Already I'm trying to do it alone, but now I'm starting to feel more and more isolated. So I start abandoning things. So, I'll just go, well, no one's interested. I'm just not going to do that. But the organisation and actually what we're trying to achieve misses out. So, if we flip that on its head and we look at the people who have access to a coach, perhaps a mentor or someone in their community of practice, they can talk about those setbacks. They can actually get that boost, that thing that they need to keep them going. And even even if we think about, some of our sporting people, the alone sports, so I don't know, the long distance runners who actually need to do that on their own, they've got someone there supporting them, saying, keep going, you're on the right track. So ultimately, it's that sustainable change is really very rarely the result of something learned and then, that breakthrough from that learning. It's around what comes from a combination of having that community of practice, having a good coaching environment, and building an environment within the organisation that supports that deployment of the learning and encourages it. So that progress is going to be more likely as a result.
Yeah, agreed. And I suppose it's like that. You can get burnout if you have too much overload, and it's I'm very much of the people person, so kind of look back in your time if you're just trying to take it on all, look at that time and really kind of ask for help and that supportive methodology, because how can you actually tell someone whether they need reassurance, whether they need clarity, or just support?
So I think about this for myself personally. So when I'm feeling a little bit frustrated or I'm feeling a little bit lost in what I'm doing, one of the things that I do is listen to myself. So I listen to some of the questions running through my mind. So if one of those questions is, can I actually do this? Then I'm going to need some reassurance. So I feel like I understand the work, but my confidence has taken a knock. So seeing someone else succeed and receiving encouragement or remembering past successes can help me move forward. So, I seek out those people, or, I have a chat to you, Jackie, and just bounce that around with it. The other thought that I check in with myself is, I don't know where to start. Excuse me, I'm battling a cold at the moment. But if I'm thinking I don't know where to start, then what I'm actually seeking is some clarity. So the challenge isn't a lack of motivation, it's around, maybe too many possible directions. So, getting some direction, or, breaking the work down into those simple steps. So there's a lot of listening to your own self that comes into the mix, but also listening to your team. So if you have a team member there who says, I kind of know what to do, I know what to do, but I just can't seem to make the progress, then that's a call to action for some support. So maybe put them into some coaching, or, have a trusted colleague that mentors them through that process. So it's about listening to the voices, whether it's your own or whether it's someone else.
Yeah, and they could actually test out the 21 3-day sprint that we've got at Leadership Through Data, and then have a go for some support there. So what does a good next step look like when someone feels like overwhelmed?
So for me, when I'm feeling overwhelmed, a good next step is to get out of my head and go for a walk. But, whatever we can do to make that small step to start today, but meaningfully move forward. So, we just need to make sure that whatever those steps look like, it's moving things forward. And I think that's where the key difference between training and going on an accelerator program makes a difference, because it's like little steps, little bites that we can take. So what we want to be doing is we want to make, what is that one outcome I'm looking for today that takes me to that, to that ultimate goal? What action can I complete in the next hour, or the next day, or the next week? And then also, and this is around the SMART goals as well, how will I know that I've made that progress? So, instead of sort of sitting there and saying, I need to redesign our information governance framework, that's big. So, the next step would be reframed as, I need to schedule a 30-minute meeting with some stakeholders. So that 30-minute meeting, what I want to get out of it is some agreed top priorities. So, it's about those smaller steps, or or smaller chunks of, bite-sized learning, or being on the accelerator program to take things one step at a time.
Yeah, and I think also add to that is that if you're feeling overwhelmed, take a stock about what you're actually doing, because 95% of our time is probably made up of doing things that we shouldn't actually be doing within our organisation. So, having an understanding of what is in your job description, what things should you actually be doing, take a stock of that, and then move them to the 5%. I talked about this last week at Andrea, so if anyone wants any more context around it, then head back and review that one. But it's really simple to reduce that overwhelmness, because actually what jobs can you delegate? What jobs, are you fundamental to move that project forward? Or do you actually need training, or do you just need you're identifying all these things that you're doing, and then you think, oh, actually I do need that coaching, and I do need that support method. So you can actually go to your boss and say, hey, I'm overwhelmed, look at this, and then this is the reason because of it, rather than I'm overwhelmed, I just need to kind of stop working. So they're the things that I would kind of suggest as well. I need that support. Now, once someone, because we're all very good, we've got imposter syndrome, we've got a lot of things on our plate, and we start to blame ourselves that we're not good enough because we haven't got those things done. What would you say to somebody to stop blaming themselves, and what's the next thing that they would need to do after that? So I've come to you, I'm overwhelmed, I'm not doing my job right, I've learned everything, I'm blaming myself. What would you say is the next thing that they need to do?
So I'm a good one at this, as you know, Jackie. So I actually spoke about the whole imposter syndrome at Rimper a couple of years ago with a couple of other people. So self-blame, it's just all consuming of your mental energy. And I know that when people start believing that I'm not good enough, everyone, surely everyone's going to figure out I'm a fake any minute now, or I just need to work harder. When we stop doing that, we actually create space to ask more productive questions. So when we stop beating ourselves up, we can actually be more productive. So, instead of, and I really have to be conscious of this, instead of me getting a blocker and I think, oh, I'm not good enough, I don't know what I'm doing, I actually need to turn that around and consciously ask the question, well, what's actually getting in the way here? So, is it a skill or a will? Can I not be bothered putting the energy into this, rather than doing that whole imposter syndrome? And, by doing that, what we're going to do is we're going to shift that conversation from it being about me, so about me as the identity, and it shifts it into that reality space. So it goes from, oh, I'm the problem, to actually there's a problem I can understand and I can influence. So once we've got that, we get a clearer picture of the situation. We, can create a sense of urgency with the people around us, and we can create some influence with the people around us, and actually start delegating as well. And also that allows the space for the manageable next actions. So instead of sitting there consuming all that space thinking, it's all about me and my identity, I can't do this, don't even know what I'm doing, it's going to start building that momentum to regain my confidence as I'm seeing things being done. But actually there's a ripple effect. It will make everyone around me confident, because people trust me to don't know what to do. And if I'm beating myself up thinking, I don't even know what I'm doing, then that ripple effect is people lose trust. So yeah, turning that conversation around in your own head is the key thing, Jackie.
Yeah, and I want to add to that gratitude. So write down something that you're grateful for. If you're feeling overwhelmed, just write down what you're grateful for. And they can really kind of bring you, re-ground yourself with the things that are good, going well. And then you can kind of move forward. how do we help people move forward from that emotional place into clarity without making them panic? Like those types of things, Andrea.
It's like you were pretending to be me there for a minute. Yeah, so, our instincts as humans is to problem solve. So when someone feels overwhelmed, more information, I'm a believer in data points or looking at bigger pictures. But having an overwhelm of information, we need to be careful of that as well, because it can increase that sense of overload. So what we want to do is, instead of adding to that overload or trying to solve problems for people or trying to always problem solve for ourselves, we want to help narrow people's focus. So, I always think about this, like acknowledge what's happening, acknowledge what those people are experiencing or where that emotion is coming from, and then explore what's contributing to the situation rather than jumping to solutions. People always bring themselves to work. So, having that space to explore what else could be contributing to that situation is really important, because it might not be that thing right in front of them that they're emotional about. It might be a couple of other things going on as well. The other thing is then we work towards prioritizing. So, break that problem down into one or two issues that matter the most. So a couple of things that, when people are overwhelmed or they're panicking, we can just focus on those two issues. So this is actually a trick. So for those who don't know, I'm a trained firefighter. I haven't done the work for a little while, but one of the things that we do in an emergency situation, so people are full of emotion, full of panic, is we actually delegate jobs for people to do. So you go call 111, you go get a bucket of water, and it actually calms the whole situation down. And that's around, acting on those meaningful steps. So if we take that and we look at our own environments, everyone's emotional, everyone's panicking, there are 50 things wrong with our information governance or 50 things wrong in SharePoint. It takes it down to, okay, calm down. Which one of these, if we improved or if we did it right now, would make the biggest difference? So, it's just around the actions and acknowledging and then taking the emotion out of the picture through that.
Yeah, agreed. There's definitely something that is the Leadership Through Data scorecard that would allow you to give a really nice sort of round-robin picture of those things, so you can prioritise exactly what you're saying. So I think that's some great information. So I kind of want to bring the conversation to a close together. I think the biggest thing for me is that I want people to take away from today's session is if more training has not fixed the problem, that does not mean you have failed. It just needs you to be in a more supportive environment. It may simply mean that the problem was just never a knowledge problem. And I think that is such an important shift, because so many capable people can blame themselves when they have done the course, downloaded the template, watched the webinar, read the guidance, and then just still feel stuck. Like, what do I do? And they think, what is wrong with me? But more often, the question is, what am I missing around me? What support environment do I need? Because progress doesn't just come from more content, it comes from when people feel safe enough just to be honest, clear enough to know what matters, and supported enough to take that action. And think about my calendar earlier, that kind of puts that into the context. So information gives you awareness, clarity helps you decide where to focus, and support actually helps you to move forward. And that is definitely something that in the Empower Accelerator program is there. So if you are listening to this and thinking, I know these things, but I'm still not moving forward, I'd love to hear from you, and I want to take that pressure off for you for a moment. So head over to the Leadership Through Data website and learn more about our Accelerator program. We've also got our 21-day sprint for free that you can test it out and actually get that support in 21 days. You don't need to learn anything new. We're just going to create you that space to make sense of what you already know, and you can have the support of trusted advisors such as myself and Andrea and some others as well, so you can choose the right steps. So you might need structure, you might need more accountability, or somebody along your side that can hold your hand pretty much and guide you along the way, and I would love to be part of that. I don't want you to think that this is weakness. This is how progress actually happens. So the best of us have coaches, business coaches, that can really guide us forward. So I just want to take the opportunity to thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Andrea, for your really insightful information. I think it was great. I just love kind of how you process things as well. So it's great to have you as part of this session. You're going to be joining me in week 4. So next week I've got Rachel Mitchell back with me to have more and more conversations, and we'll be looking at where you might be exposed, what actually needs your attention, and how to decide what to focus on without panicking. So that's next week, and then Andrea, you're back the week after. So thank you so much for your time. Apologies for the technical glitch we had right at the start. Hopefully you've all been able to join us as we've come part of this second piece today. But I'll see you next week, 12 o'clock, Wednesday afternoon, Great British Time, and I'll see you then. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.